Hi everybody, I'm DJ Sixsmith. Welcome to The Sit Down, a woman's work, brand new documentary, all about NFL cheerleaders fighting for equality and fighting for what's right. This is a woman that started it all, Lacy Fields. How are you?
Great, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too. So first and foremost, let's wind it back. You wanted to be a cheerleader and a dancer when you were a little girl. Yeah. You get to the moment of dancing for the Warriors, for the Raiders, yeah. And you get there and you find out things are a little bit different than you thought. So when's the first moment that you realized the dream is not exactly reality?
Well, yeah, like you said, I'm like most young girls in America. Like, you grow up, football's in your house. I was born in the South, so like life stopped on Friday nights to go to the football game. So like the way girls are involved in sports is dancing and cheerleading. So yeah, my whole life this was my dream. Like the ultimate, I would make it to the big times if I'm in the NBA and the NFL. And I was lucky enough to experience both. And I think that was so unique. Like not most girls go and get to do the NBA and the NFL. And because I had that experience and I had been treated so well in the NBA with the Warriors and paid, like I went into the NFL with that same expectation. And not for 1 second was I told it was gonna be any different. So it wasn't until like the season had already started, I'd met all my new friends, I'd taken a big photo, announced it on Facebook, like I'm a Raiderette. It wasn't until like kind of the ball was already rolling that we sat down and were handed these contracts. And you know, as we're going through the contract, it's kind of intimidating, right? Because you're in a room full of all your teammates and you know some people from the Raiders organization, maybe it was their lawyers or whoever, and your director, and they're just reading through it quickly. It's not like you can ask questions like, that's interesting, that doesn't seem right. I didn't even actually catch the part that said we're not going to pay you till the end of the year.
Wow.
I didn't catch that till much later, after we had shot the calendar shoot and we did all these like driving places and carpooling and stuff. And my husband's like, when are you gonna get your first paycheck? And I'm like, oh.
That's a great question.
Yeah, let me look at my handbook. Let me look at my contract. I'm like, oh, I don't think we are actually. And he's like, come again? Not like we like lived off my little measly part-time job. It wasn't
No, but you want to get paid for your work.
But it's like, I've noticed that we're spending tons of money right now. When are you gonna get, you know, some of this back? And yeah, that's when I showed him, and his jaw dropped. He's like, "This is not even legal." I'm like, "Of course it's legal. Their lawyers handed it to us." I'm like, "I signed it. What does that mean?" You know? And he just kind of like was fired up from that point on. And
yeah, I mean, rightfully so. There's so many different elements to it, and in the documentary, you explained just how much you were spending out of pocket, whether it was hair or nails or clothes or anything like that, and that's not something a lot of people realize. So. What have been some of the reactions to people watching the documentary, even just learning what life was actually like for you as a Raiderette?
Well, it's interesting because it was such like a hush-lipped subject. Like you go in and they say, when you're at these promos, if someone asks you about money, you quickly change the subject. We actually had training sessions on how to approach these uncomfortable situations about money. It's very like, don't talk about it, you know, that's rude, that's not socially acceptable, change the subject. So you know, people just assume you're in the NFL. You're a part of the game day experience. Your calendar's on my wall, the shop. Like these girls must be taken care of. Like you just assume that. So when it first came out, the number one thing was like, people were like, I had no idea that they weren't even paying you guys, that you're paying out of pocket. Like that was crazy for people to finally realize, wow, this organization that I've supported and loved and grown up with, like, they actually treat employees this way? Like, that's nuts.
And this is a billion-dollar industry we're talking about.
There's no reason for it. Like, what's mind-blowing to me is when I sat down with the lawyers and we actually calculated what it would take to pay 40 women minimum wage for all the hours they worked for the entire season. It came out to like $160,000.
Which is a drop in the bucket.
One person's salary in that office would have like compensated 40 women for their work, you know, minimum wage. But even so, like just to like do the right thing, like it would have cost one person's job.
Yeah, no,
and
it's wild.
No one talked about it, no one stepped up, so they didn't have to do it.
Right, and we were talking off camera, like this has been going on for decades. And previously, there were women that just said, you know what, I'm lucky enough to be here, I'm happy to be here, I'm just gonna do my thing. And now women of this generation are saying, wait a minute, no, I deserve to get mine. So what was it like for you to see the generational difference between the women who had done it before and women like you who were just trying to get what you deserved at this point?
It's interesting because like, I don't fault a lot of those women. Okay, it was frustrating to me that no one was speaking up. But at the same time, I understood on that passion, like dancer level, how much I wanted this
Right.
and how hard I had worked and how hard it is to actually get picked for the team, right? And so for someone to actually come forward and be like, this is bull, you're giving all that up like in an instant. Like you're not only never gonna dance again, no one's ever gonna talk to you again, and there's probably gonna be fans that like threaten your life. So it's not an easy thing to do. And maybe for the women that felt the same way as me, maybe they just decided, I'm just gonna walk away and not come back.
Right.
Have like a bad taste in my mouth about it and just leave it alone. I mean, I could have easily done that, right? I could have.
That would have been the easy thing to do, right?
But what was so different, I think, for me is like I had a husband who was fired up about it. You know, he's all for it, like, we got to change this.
Right.
And I had this team of lawyers, they're all women lawyers. And they're
Yeah,
like,
they were
we're
awesome.
here to change things. And like, you have that opportunity. We could, you know, walk away and be done with it, and this can continue on, you know, forever, you know? Or, you know, you can just step up to the plate and be like, you know, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So you file your motion,
Yeah.
the Raiders settle, and
Yeah, I mean, that took 3 years. It
Yeah.
wasn't immediate. It
No.
was like a long fight, you know. They wanted us to arbitrate with the NFL commissioner. Like, are you kidding me?
that was never going to happen.
Thank
Roger
goodness.
Goodell was not going to sit down and just say,
No.
okay, let's take a look into this.
I
But
mean,
his name's on the contract
His
with
name
these situations.
is stamped on the contract, like, for all cheerleaders. They want to say we have nothing to do with the cheerleaders. Every club's in charge of their employees and stuff. But like you see in the film, like everyone who goes to the game, they know they're there under the NFL
Absolutely.
shield. And like on your employment contract, their signature's on it. So whether you knew or you read the contract or not yourself, Roger Goodell, like you're you know, a part of this just as much as the Raiders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it takes 3 years. And then all of a sudden, you see some other situations going on, whether it's the Buffalo Bills or the Buffalo Jills.
Yeah.
And then you see other situations with the Texans and the Saints, and you started all this. So what was it like for you to see this whole movement start as a result of something you did?
It was actually extremely satisfying and
I bet,
exciting,
yeah.
you know, because you feel so alone for so long, you know, like, you know in your heart you did the right thing, so there's that. And you feel really proud of yourself that you were successful in your fight for the Raiderettes, right? But you know that this is like so many other industries. This is so many other teams. And the fact that women could like look at me and say, she did it and she was okay. Like she was able to move on and live her life, but she did the right thing and it changed. It gave them strength to do that for their teams. And yeah, there was so much gratification for me as a mom and as like a woman who struggled through the years to get this accomplished. Like, you know what? Yeah, that's right. Like we did it, and we're gonna keep doing it. And then other girls are gonna look at them and say, "Oh, they did it, and they did it. Oh, look, 7 teams came forward. Like, why aren't we talking about this in our team?" Or you know, maybe their team said, "Look, we're gonna go ahead and change it right now, so no one comes out publicly."
Well, yeah, get ahead of it, but also do the right thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you guys deserved this a long time ago.
For sure.
And this is something that, honestly, it probably would have continued without you guys saying anything. And it sucks to say that.
I think it
It's
would
the
have.
truth.
I would like to think that hopefully, but you know, it's easy for things like this to kind of keep going and going and going when there's so much that it takes to get there.
Definitely.
You know?
So when you think about your life in those 3 years and you put yourself forward, what was most difficult? Because you'd worked your whole life for this, and then suddenly it's not going to be a thing anymore. So how did you get through that time?
I mean, as if it's not hard enough to be a stay-at-home mom in itself.
With multiple kids
With
running
multiple
around?
kids, you know, and that in itself can be a little bit lonesome. And you had this, for me, like going back after being the NBA dancer, living my life, living my dream, and then getting pregnant, and my whole life kind of stops.
Yeah.
And going back was just like giving myself that part of me that I love so much. Took me out of the home for a couple hours a week and allowed me to just be glamorous and like be this role model, be this like person I've always meant to be. And so when that was just taken away, I struggled to like figure out, like, is that still in me? Like, I miss it so much, just kind of getting that like expression out, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was difficult, but then slowly I found a way to come back to dance. It's not in the same way. It's not in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and it's not on the field. It's in a classroom. It's at a studio. It's at the YMCA with little kids. Like, I still dance all the time, and like my passion hasn't changed one bit, or my love of it, and the satisfaction I get from doing it, just because it's on a different platform. So like I found dance again, And so, yeah, I just had changed.
Right. It was the original pure organic experience you had.
For sure.
So when you think about your Warriors experience, you said it was great. What are some of the things that made it great in the NBA?
Well, I actually can't speak to if the NBA as a whole are taking care of their dancers.
Okay.
Because I actually do have dancers on other teams, which I will not name, and they say, Lacy, it is just as bad as your Raiderette experience. What should we do? And I don't think the NBA is like one united force, like doing the right thing. I think the Warriors stepped it up at somewhere in the line of the dance world and decided, like, we better pay these girls or something's going to happen. I don't know. I'm not speaking that. But I know by the time I got there, there was nothing out of pocket. Nothing became stressful situations. They said, Lacy, we need you at this promo. And every 2 weeks I got a paycheck. Okay.
Like it should be.
Like it should be. And like I had no stress or worry. Lacy, we want your hair to be this way. We're going to send someone to come do your hair for you. Game day. Oh, everyone sit down. We're going to get your makeup done. Like, here's the costumes you need for today's game. It was enjoyable. It was fun.
You didn't have to worry about other things.
You didn't have to worry about other things, and you felt special and appreciated and taken care of by the Warriors. And if you did a certain amount of promos for them, you got bonuses. Like, you wanted to work for the Warriors and support the Warriors because you felt like they valued you. You know?
Yeah, and that's the situation that should be for everybody, but unfortunately, it's not. So when you think about the landscape of sports and cheerleading, what else still needs to change for these women?
Man, I mean, it's silly to be like, oh, they should get minimum wage, because it's such a high demand job that requires, like, it doesn't even just require skill. You have to be the whole package. You got to be approachable. You got to be well spoken. You got to be able to sit in front of a camera and not be nervous and be yourself. Like,
you have to be physically fit.
You have to be physically. You not only have to be physically fit, like the best you could be, and maintain that through the whole year.
Yeah.
Which is not easy. Like, how people go, they get motivated. This is your job to look, to act, to sound the best, to be educated. Like, it's the whole package. So, like, is that worth minimum wage? Is that worth, what it costs to sell a beer? Like, I'm sorry, I respect all those people that work hard and have those jobs. I think they deserve more than minimum wage also. But, like, come on, this is a high demand, highly competitive sport that, you get the best of the best for your team. Like, pay them.
It's a huge part of the experience.
Yeah. Not millions of dollars, no, but look at the revenue they bring in for you and pay them accordingly.
And just invest in your people properly, because if they invest in the squad, then the squad's going to give them exactly and even more.
And you'll get better and better and better girls. Like, the girls are going to be like, oh man, I don't want to do this. I'm going to bring my talents to Oakland, be a Raiderette, It's like being a Rockette,
Yeah.
I want to, feel like what I've worked for my whole life is definitely going to pay off. And not just in, like, personal pleasure.
No doubt about it. No, in financial worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when people check out this documentary, there's obviously a whole range of emotions that they will experience, but what do you want people to take away, whether it's your story or just the whole industry in general?
Well, so when this came out 5 years ago, everyone had an opinion on it, right? Whether you, like, support cheerleaders or not, or think that they're, like, part of the game day experience, that they can be gone. They're cheerleaders, they're here to land someone famous and, blah, blah, blah. I mean, everyone has something to say. So now I hope when they watch the documentary, they can see the bigger picture. It's an NFL cheerleader problem, yes. It's not just about cheerleaders.
Yeah.
It's about women and, like, your worth and, like, what you contribute to an organization that has money. And it's about, like, the struggles that all women go through and, like, showing feminism, like, in a modern way. And it's like the journey of even myself, like, figuring out what does it mean to be a feminist, like, in today's world.
And you hit that in the documentary, because at first people were calling you feminist, so you're like, wait a minute.
I was like, I am not a feminist.
And actually, you embodied feminism to a T.
In my mind, it was like a bad word. Like, people were like, oh, she's a feminist, and, like, you just grow up. I mean, I'm from the South, where, like, women stay home and they work and they get married at 18, they have kids. Like, they have their jobs, even now. Like, that's what a lot of my friends have done. They have lots of kids. They stay home. I'm lucky enough to stay home and kind of live that as well.
Sure.
But, like, we're just so much more than that. And, like, we deserve to be treated with, like, respect. I mean, women are so much more than the uniform they wear. Nurses, cheerleaders, Hooters restaurant workers.
Yeah.
Like, if you're working for someone and you're bringing in revenue. You deserve to be paid. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to feel safe at your employee. Like that's
Absolutely.
like the minimum requirements that I think like all women, doesn't matter your generation, right, or age. Like we should all just agree on that, and I feel like things will change at a much faster rate than they are at the moment.
Yeah, just have those basic foundational principles, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Don't judge people based on like what career they choose and oh well they deserve that because they're nurses. They don't deserve that because they're like wear little short shorts. Like no, they're working hard. They're working hard. They're working hard. They deserve to be treated, but at least in accordance with the law.
Yeah, let's just start with that. That's all you're looking for.
I mean, that's what I'm like, she's in it for the money. I'm like, I'm fighting for minimum wage.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm fighting for the bare flipping minimum.
But people slap labels on it, and it's just very easy to put you guys in a box. Whether,
for sure.
You know?
Yeah, and
but
I get it.
guess what? There's much more depth to the conversation, much more depth to the jobs, and I'm really glad that people could see that with the documentary.
Yeah, me too. I thought that we did a phenomenal job, like sparking conversations again about it.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Well, Lacy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you in. Why don't you tell everybody where they can check out the documentary?
Well, right now we're at the Tribeca Film Festival. I think we're going to go on tour and do like a bunch of festivals around the country. But ultimately, I would love to have it on Netflix or just something where like everyone can see, or maybe go to colleges. But it's a woman's work, the NFL cheerleader problem. Whether you love cheerleaders or hate cheerleaders, it's definitely worth watching, especially if you're a young woman or you have daughters, because I think it'll really change your opinion on like what women should be fighting for in any industry. And yeah, check it out.
It's a good one to check out.
Yeah.
I watched it last night, really enjoyed it. Lacy, thanks so much. All right, everybody, we'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.